Over the next weeks and months, I saw various specialists. I got my heart checked, I got a brain MRI, but nothing showed any explanation for my symptoms. I just pushed through and tried to live my life, and also my baseline fluctuated a lot over the years. Every time it got worse, I went to the doctor again, and some years later I got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, which is not uncommon, I think, and I got hydrocortisone, which completely knocked me out. I can get up very early, walk the dog, get ready and work a few hours. While a year ago, I wasn't able to make my own breakfast. I think I don't have any limiters on walking anymore. I'm able to work. Yeah, I can drive. I just recently got a little car, and I work for a clarinet workshop, and it's I don't have to go there very often, but it's 1.5 hour drive, and I can go there and back without any problems. And yeah, I think I don't have any limiters on the physical side.
How's it going, Thrivers? Miguel here with CFS Recovery. In this video, we have Annika all the way from Germany. She's going to share some of her story. She dealt with CFS for about 10 years, mild on and off. And then when COVID hit her, it hit her pretty hard to the point where she was bedridden. So that was about 2 years ago, but now she's able to work again, walk her dogs consistently, socialize, really just reintegrate back into life and not feel like she's limited anymore. She's living just a normal life. So Annika, it's great to have you here. You want to quickly introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Annika. I'm 38 years old and I live in the southwest of Germany.
Southwest of Germany. So lots of fellow Thrivers in the program from Germany. So it was about 10 years ago when this whole journey kind of started. How did it all start? Did you get sick or were you just pushing too hard? What was that like in the early days when this started? Do you remember?
I think I definitely pushed too hard. But I had a back injury, and the pain medication gave me a severe gastritis, which never went away again. And around that time, more and more symptoms appeared.
Got it. And when it first hit you, were you still able to function, or did it hit you all at once and all your symptoms came? Or was it a slow burn over time?
Yeah, it was rather gradually. I was working a lot. I was self-employed. I had a tea shop, and I also kept my second job that I had while I was studying. And when I wasn't working, I was out with friends and also traveled a lot. So I lived a very fast-paced life, and I was able to maintain that for a while. But over time, I became more and more exhausted.
And what were some of those early signs and symptoms where you knew something was off?
So I had panic attacks and heart palpitation, which brought me to the emergency room multiple times. And of course, I went to the doctor, but all the blood work came back with nothing that explained my symptoms. I had a few deficits here and there, like iron and vitamins, like the usual stuff. The doctors told me I'm fine. We will get treatment for the deficits and you will be okay again. And of course, the brain listens. So I felt a little bit better when I got these IV treatments, but some symptoms were still lingering. Over the next weeks and months, I saw various specialists. I got my heart checked, I got a brain MRI, but nothing showed any explanation for my symptoms. I just pushed through and tried to live my life, and also my baseline fluctuated a lot over the years. Every time it got worse, I went to the doctor again, and some years later I got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, which is not uncommon, I think, and I got hydrocortisone, which completely knocked me out at first, but then on a very, very low dose, it kept me on my feet enough so I could continue working.
Yeah, I also got diagnosed with adrenal fatigue. They call it corticoid insufficiency, and they gave me hydrocortisone, but my body had an allergic reaction because it's kind of like jump starting a car that's already, freaking out. The electricals are all going crazy and then jump starting it. So I remember I couldn't sleep for about a week. It was crazy. So, very similar
Yeah.
to a journey,
Yeah.
you medical gauntlet, trying to figure this out.
I already had like pretty bad insomnia, so it just got worse from that.
So you had the panic attacks, you had a lot of insomnia. What kind of other symptoms were you feeling at the time when all this was coming about? Did it just kind of snowball and things got compoundedly worse?
Yeah, I had so many symptoms over the years, I can't even remember them all. Like I had strange symptoms like bruises all over my body and muscle twitching. I had like a twitching eye for weeks with no explanation. I had like brain fog, like I couldn't concentrate. I lost my train of thoughts. The heart palpitation were always present, and the fatigue. I think there was like a time where I got out of this fight flight stage more into a freeze stage, and then I got pretty bad fatigue. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're on this journey trying to figure out what's going on. You're doing all these tests and scans, seeing specialists and all of that, as most people do. I call it the medical gauntlet because you're like having to go through all these different specialists and doctors. And for the most part, at least from what we see with people, they may find something that's out of the ordinary, but they won't really find something that explains everything that's going on. Or if they do find something, there's not really a solution they have other than medication. So what did you try to get better for all those years, especially when the doctors weren't able to pinpoint what was going on? So the doctors gave you the hydrocortisone. Were you trying other stuff as well to try to get better?
Yeah, I tried like everything they offered me. Like I did heavy metal detoxing, like supplements, hundreds of it. I had like, I don't know how many IVs with vitamins, with like, I can't even remember all of it. Nothing really helped, but I would say it kept me on my feet somehow, that I was still able to function like for years, but over time my condition still declined. And then I had a surgery in 2020, which didn't go as planned. And after that, I got diagnosed with muscle activation syndrome. And I thought that every symptom I ever had came from that. So I got new medication, I ate a strict diet, but still my condition got worse over the next 2 years.
So that's in 2020, you get the mast cell activation diagnosis. And then 2 years later, you get hit with COVID. So what was that like when COVID first hit you? And, walk us through the last 2 years, because you were on this journey trying to get better, doing everything you can. Things weren't really getting better, but then COVID hits and it was a big setback, right? So kind of walk through that when it first hit you.
So it was in the winter 21, 22. It was really hard for me. Like we had this lockdown in Germany, which was really hard on my business. And I also had to decide whether to extend my contract for my business because I was now like only able to work. And I even had to rent a room in the city where my shop was because I couldn't go back and forth anymore. And then our old dog died, and also we had a like little New Year's celebration, and we were just hesitant to get together with other people. We weren't like really afraid of COVID, but we were cautious. So everyone was testing beforehand, and my husband had like mild cold symptoms, but he tested twice and he was negative. And the next day, his test was positive, and this was such a huge shock to us because we thought we infected all of our friends. And surprisingly, none of us got it, including me. But then a month later, I finally tested positive. And the infection was mild. But during my infection, I felt hot symptoms hit me for the first time. I haven't had that before. I was walking a little bit and I felt like I passed out. And that was the beginning of a huge decline in my health.
Yeah, so that was around the winter of 2021 going to 2022, or I guess 2 years.
Yeah.
Got it. So you get COVID sometime January, February, things start to really decline. And then what happened next? What happened later that year? Because that's when you became bedridden, right?
Yeah. So I went to the doctor again, and he told me just take some time, rest a little bit. He gave me some vitamin IVs, but I couldn't tolerate them anymore. It only made me worse. So I tried to rest for a few weeks, but I had to get back to work. But I tried it a few times. I just couldn't do it. I had so much fatigue. I had so much brain fog, I couldn't stand for longer than 5 minutes. And so my brother then introduced me to a doctor who specializes in fatigue diseases. And then I got finally diagnosed with MEC. And he told me there's no cure to it. We have some medications, we can elevate the symptoms somewhat, but you have to live your life like that.
And that was in 2022?
Yeah, it was like late spring, I think, yeah.
Late spring. Okay, so even the doctor said you can't recover from this. You can just... Yeah, we've heard that a lot from these doctors who don't know really how to treat it. And then what happened next after that? Tell us what happened going into the fall, because that was, would you say that's probably the hardest part of your journey? Kind of what happened next when you were...
Yeah, so I had to give up my business, and I think first I went to a really dark place because who wants to live a life like this? I still was I would say couch bound. I was able to get up, do little things, but I could barely leave the house. And then I saw a well-known doctor, and he told me they're doing studies and you need the climate change to activate your immune system, and then you will get better. And so we booked like a week at the sea, and I actually felt better because this doctor who is really well known told me I can get better. And so I still had symptoms, but I felt better for this week. And when we returned, I tried to work, and then I crashed so hard that I couldn't go back. It was my last day at work.
Wow.
Then.
Wow. So you didn't even last like a week when you got back.
Yeah, maybe 3 days.
God, it's so that trip probably wasn't the best idea because it made you push a little hard.
I'm not sure. I mean, I had a good week, but I really believed him that I was better. So, but I wasn't. And that pushed my nervous system over the edge, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what did you find the CFS Recovery YouTube channel? Like, is that how you found this?
Yeah, it took me a little bit longer. First, I did all the wrong things, like went in the Facebook forums and all that stuff where people don't offer any help, just like complaining about, the healthcare system. And I kept researching because I don't want to believe that there's no cure to it. And it turns out that there are people who recover from it. And I learned a little bit about the mind-body approach, but I still didn't know how to apply it because I haven't found any solution how to deal with symptoms. And we moved houses in the end of summer 2022. And after that, I was in bed for 23 hours. I was still able to go downstairs to eat, but I couldn't prepare or cook food or left the house. And that's when I found your YouTube channel, and finally I was able to understand what was going on. And applying these principles, I made some initial progress in the spring of 23. I was again able to sit up for a few hours and also left the house once a week or once every 2 weeks, but I still needed a lot of time to recover from it, like days, 2 weeks. And around this time, I thought about joining the program. I just wanted to say I felt like I really needed some guidance to move forward.
Yeah. So sounds like you were making some progress with just the YouTube videos. You started being a little more functional. And what was the deciding factor of you saying, okay, it's time to do this? I need to take it to the next level. Did you get stuck at a certain place in recovery, or you just wanted to get better faster and you saw that it was working and you were like, okay, if this works, then surely they'll be able to help me? What was going through your mind?
So I think I felt a little bit stuck because I think I reached a point where I had to introduce more like activity, and I was still too afraid to do it on my own because I didn't want to go back to the place I came from. And I also followed Krista on Instagram and saw how she was healing, and that finally made me want to join the Jumpstart program.
Yeah. And for you, because you've been in the program inside the community for, what is it, just over a year now, or almost a year now?
Yeah.
Of
A
that
year
time?
and a week, yeah.
Yeah, a year and a week. So, it's like almost like the 1 year anniversary. You've learned a lot and you made a lot of progress. What were some of the most helpful things you did in recovery? Like, what's some golden nuggets you can take away and share with some people? I know there's so many because we cover so many topics, but what are like the top 2 or 3 things you think that helped you go from, getting by and kind of functional to getting your life back?
Yeah. I think, first of all, of course, applying the recovery principles. It's simple, but it's not easy to really respond well to the symptoms. And I just did what I was told. I think it took me some time to really understand what it means to respond well to symptoms, just be okay with them. And also, I really learned that my body is not broken. It's just working for me. It wants to keep me safe. And this was for me a huge mind shift. So I started to trust my body more, and also seeing other people in the calls getting better from week to week make my own recovery even more real. And hearing all these wins really showed me that recovery is happening for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those calls make such a huge difference, especially when you're in adjustment periods and you can hear other people asking questions and maybe even they're in adjustment periods. But then everybody feels like they're part of this team and you don't have to really do this alone. So how impactful was that, having weekly live calls with other people, kind of going through what you're going through, but also being in a solution-oriented environment? Like, did that help keep things on track for you, especially during those flare-ups?
Yes, absolutely. Like being on these calls, especially in the flare-ups, like it was like a motivation to just keep going and hang on to your mindset. And I often felt better after these calls because it's such a positive environment and helps you just stay on track, I would say. And everyone is so lovely and there's so much celebration for every win. And I think that made a huge impact in my recovery.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is different now, like today, Anika today versus Anika a year ago? And there's different buckets we can go into, like physical, mental, emotional. But let's say physically, what were you doing a year ago versus what are you doing now? What is life like now? Maybe just paint that picture for us.
Yeah, it's like totally different. I can get up very early, walk the dog, get ready and work a few hours. While a year ago, I wasn't able to make my own breakfast. And I think I don't have any limiters on walking anymore. I'm able to work. I can drive. I just recently got a little car and I work for a clarinet workshop, and it's like I don't have to go there very often, but it's 1.5 hour drive and I can go there and back without any problems. And I think I don't have any limiters like on the physical side.
Mm-hmm. And you can also socialize again, right? And hang out with friends and go out.
Yeah. While a year ago, I could see a friend maybe for half an hour, I can now socialize as long as I want. I was on a retreat a few weeks ago and was able to socialize with all 17 people all week without any limitations. Yeah.
That's awesome. And going from a year ago where you couldn't even make breakfast, that's a huge difference. So when it comes to physical activity, what do you think, what was your method for increasing capacity? because, we teach a lot of different principles, and some principles stick more and help more for different people. But for you, what was your mindset around increasing activity, and what really helped on the physical side of things? I know there's so many things we could cover, but
Yeah, I think really it was always taking a courageous step forward. Like I started my 30-day challenge with 7-minute walks every other day. And when I increased to 10 minutes, I got in a 6-week long AP. I really wanted to be able to walk again. So I started again, and I increased with each progress cycle. I was able to walk further, and I think that's what got me to the point where I can walk for 1.5 hours in the morning before breakfast. Yeah, I think that's it.
yeah. And that's so important, what you just said too. We implemented your plan, and then you had a 6-week go out and try something and have a 6-week adjustment period. They would think it's a crash, or they would think they went backwards. And maybe that even crossed your mind in the beginning, right? But you stayed on track and you kept going. Or you didn't keep like the walking, but in terms of recovery, you stayed focused on responding well to symptoms and tweaking and adjusting. And that's how you were able to level up after that. And when it comes to physical activity, the way you've expanded to this point, looking back, what are some of the mistakes you made when it came to expanding activity? Like maybe even before you started making all this progress, like just so some people can learn what to avoid.
Yeah. Before the program, I think I was more like pushing and crashing, like maybe many of us, because when I had energy, I used it all. And then I was in bed again. And I think I really learned not to use all of my energy at once, just leave a little bit. And then it's better to, like, even if you're able to walk maybe half an hour, for me, it was better to walk like 25 minutes. But then I could do it the next day again, and then I could increase to, I don't know, 40 minutes. I didn't have to increase every minute at once, but not go all the way, and then I have to rest for like 6 weeks again.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I have to say it was really crucial for me to have the support from my coach, Adrian, because especially in the beginning with these long APs, it was really important for me that I could ask again whether I was on the right path. And I'm not sure if I would be able to maintain my mindset if it wasn't for the program.
Mm-hmm. And it makes a huge difference having that reassurance from an external source of like, hey, no, this is actually supposed to happen. Yeah, no, the AP, that means you're right on track. Like this is all part of it. It makes such a huge difference for me. It was my doctor who would keep my mindset on track. And in the beginning, I would talk to him every day in the hospital. But then once I was out in the world again, I think we were talking every 2 weeks. It was just a phone call, like a 10-minute phone call. And then he would just remind me of like, hey, any questions you have, just any worries you have about recovery, remember everything I taught you in the hospital. So it was actually very short, but it makes such a huge difference. Even hearing one sentence sometimes from somebody you trust. CFS, that's a big difference. Knowing that they know what you're going through, that trust is huge. So when it comes to physical activity, some of my roadblocks are similar to yours too. And we see it in a lot of people. It's trying to add on too much too soon because they just want more and more versus being able to enjoy their current level of activity, even if it's small, like being able to go outside for 2 minutes. You have to learn to be grateful for those small things versus always trying to push the limits on physical activity. So the patience and consistency is huge, but also, like you said, a lot of courage as well. I think you're never 100% ready to get to the next level or increase capacity. Never 100% sure, right? There's always a question mark. It's like, should I risk doing more and adding more capacity because I'm okay right now. Should I keep going? Or should I go to the next level? And then you use the courage, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is scary to go in this adjustment period, but I mean, it's so worth it every time I increased and went in these adjustment periods, and especially when I tried something new, like going on a train ride or walk up the hill for the first time, I always got rewarded with a leap in my capacity. So it's totally worth it.
Exactly.
And once you made these like experience, you always can remember this, and the next time it gets easier and easier.
Mm-hmm. And just like you said, you get rewarded after the adjustment period. So you start to associate these flare-ups with something positive. It's like a sign that, okay, a level up is coming. So that's how I saw it too. When I was in flare-ups, I actually got excited because I knew, like, okay, I know what happens next after this if I respond well. So physically, you made tons and tons of progress. It's a world's difference compared to a year ago. Let's talk about the cognitive and emotional side of things. How do you feel, what do you feel is the biggest difference emotionally and cognitively in the way you see the world and respond to the world? Do you say there's some differences there as well?
Yes, for sure. So first of all, I feel so much more gratitude for the little things. I think I go through life with so much more ease. And I mean, I was like the last 10 years, I was worried all the time because something is going on nobody can find, and you sometimes feel like you're dying, but you don't, and you never know if you will make it back home because you sometimes feel so ill and you don't know why. So I think, I mean, there's a healthy fear that keeps you safe, but other than that, I'm like, for example, I flew to this retreat I mentioned earlier for the first time, and in the past I really had like bad flight anxiety, and like it was a rough flight really, but I was like totally fine. Like I really feel now what it means to have a regulated nervous system, and I think it just changes your perspective on everything.
Yeah.
And so cognitively, I think I had more like problems in the physical part than in the cognitive, but now I can like read a whole book or like being on the computer if I need to, like for hours. I don't feel any kind of limitation there anymore.
That's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really,
it is.
yeah. It's cool to see the recovery principles and responding well to symptoms, going through the progress cycles and flare-ups. It teaches you so many lessons and shows you how strong you are actually. So when you get back into the real world and these stressors and curveballs come up, like being on a flight and there's turbulence, it teaches you how to respond well in those situations. Because I think dealing with symptoms and dealing with some adjustment periods, you almost feel like, especially in the beginning, you almost feel like you're fighting for your life sometimes. So it's like there's a lot at stake. Stakes are very high, but you learn to keep your composure in those high stakes situations. So when you learn to handle those situations well, a lot of other things in life, they don't phase you like they used to because you know how to regulate your nervous system instead of always being on edge.
Yeah, and it's really like not only responding well to the symptoms, but as you said, it's responding well to life. And I thought a year ago that the only goal is to get rid of the symptoms by the end of the year. But I have learned to see it as it's so much more like it's, I think, a lifelong journey to live a more authentic life, and which is in alignment with your values, and getting rid out of this hypersensitive nervous stage is a huge milestone on this road, but it doesn't end there. I think there's so much more that, I learned during this year.
Yeah, and it's interesting because think when this initially hits people, the main goal is to just get rid of their symptoms so they could go back to living their life. It's like, oh man, all these symptoms, they're getting in the way of everything, all my dreams, my whole life. I just want to get back to doing what I'm doing. But the symptoms are there to kind of guide you to the right path. Because, you know, if you were to go back to the old Annika, the old ways of thinking and habits, then you'd likely end up sick again, right? Because it's that mindset that gets you to that place. You stay stuck in the cycle. So, you know, it's interesting to see that. Well, at least when I look back, I saw that it was just trying to kind of save me from myself. My body was actually trying to save me from myself, over pushing, overdoing things and all that. So, you know, it taught me so many things like patience and, you know, not freaking out when curveballs come up and keep composed. So for you, do you have any big goals coming up this year? Any big trips? Anything on the bucket list that you want to do for the next stages of journey?
Yeah, so I already did so many things that was on my list when I joined the program. Like, for example, I got married in January 23 when I was basically at my worst. And we just went to town hall and had dinner with our closest cycle, but I couldn't even shower that day. And one of my goals was to go on a honeymoon vacation. And I was able to do that in March this year and to Italy. And I was able to drive on that way, hike and go to the spa, eat out every night. So basically everything I dreamed of. And that was like the huge goal for this year that I already accomplished. But we go. Like on a concert next week, I got my husband concert tickets for Christmas. It's like a really huge concert. And I was like very optimistic when I bought like front stage, but I think I'm now able to do this.
Wow, that is awesome. I'm so glad you got to go on that honeymoon too and celebrate, you know, after everything you've been through. And I'm sure it was extra bittersweet being there because you probably talked about this vision with your husband so many times when you couldn't do it. Like, one day we'll do this. We'll go to Italy. We'll be able to do this. And finally it happened. That's like the most rewarding thing ever.
Absolutely. It was really amazing. And it's a few months ago. I had more symptoms back then. And I thought when we are going to do this, I would be symptom-free, and also have to be symptom-free. But you reach a point where you can live your life like despite the symptoms. And that's really great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because you always have like some kind of symptoms when you didn't sleep enough or things like that. But they become manageable at a point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So for someone watching this right now who may be in a position you were in, you know, about a year ago, and they're not as functional, you know, they can barely leave the house and they're still deep in the trenches on their journey and they're looking for some inspiration, and they're watching this video, right? They've been watching it for over 30 minutes. What is some advice you could give them? Like just some general advice or something they could take away from you that could help them on their journey? What is some advice you want to give them?
So I think just don't give up, like hanging there. I think that's the most important thing. You have everything to heal inside you. Just if you're like me, get some guidance. The program was like the best thing that could happen to me. And you have to believe in recovery and you have to believe in yourself. And I really believe if you do that, like recovery not only happens, but it becomes inevitable.
Yeah, I agree. It becomes inevitable, especially if you have that belief. And I think people watching this right now, a part of them does believe, you know, because they wouldn't be watching something like this if they didn't. And even if it's 1% belief, because for me, there was a point where 99% of myself said, yeah, there's no way. There's no way. I'm in a hospital. I'm just getting worse. There's no way I could come back. But 1% of me was like, no, there's a reason you're still here, Miguel. There is a future, and it's inevitable that it's going to happen. Just like with you, your doctor said you can't recover from this, but you believed in yourself and you didn't listen to these other outside sources. And the cool thing is, I think once you're exposed to the idea that people can get and proof that people can get better, it makes something click in your brain where you're like, okay, if someone else and multiple other people got better, surely there's a way to fix this. It's not like they're aliens, they're just regular humans. So there's not a way. There has to be a way. And they can do it. You can do it. If Annika can do it, if Anika can do it, you guys can definitely do it. So yeah. Is there anything else you'd want to share with these folks right now, these thrivers? Any golden nuggets?
Believe in recovery. Join the program if you can. It saves so many lives.
Yeah. So join the program. Let's save some lives. Let's get people thriving. So yeah. Well, this has been an awesome chat, Anika. I really appreciate you for coming on and sharing some of your story, going from barely being able to make breakfast a year ago to being able to celebrate a honeymoon and traveling and socializing, working again. You recently got a car, really getting your life back. So, you made it through the trenches of CFS. You were bedridden at one point, but it's one of those powerful stories of overcoming this seemingly incurable illness. And we're just out here proving that it is absolutely possible to get your life back. So, hope you guys watching right now, hope you guys got some value out of this, had some key takeaways. If you did, comment down below, what was your biggest takeaway? And if you did need some extra help, you can always apply to one of our programs or click the link below for the different solutions that we have for people. We have different types of solutions for all different kinds of people at different stages of recovery. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you, Anika. Thank you again for coming on here. And everybody, always remember, you are just one mind shift away from living life with thriving health. So we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much, Anika.
Thanks for having me.